All right. Today, we are breaking down Gilead Sciences' latest earnings report for 2025. We're going to go way beyond the headlines to really uncover the story these numbers are telling us about the company's health and, more importantly, where it's headed next.
So, what's the very first thing that jumps off the page? It's this number. In the fourth quarter, Gilead didn't just meet revenue expectations. They absolutely smashed them, beating the forecast by nearly $250 million. That is a seriously strong signal. So, let's dig in and see how they did it.
To get the whole story, we're going to walk through 5 key parts. We'll kick things off with their strong finish to the year, and then we'll look at the HIV powerhouse that's really driving their growth. We'll also get real about the headwinds they're facing, check out what's in the pipeline, and finally, give you the verdict on what this all means.
Okay, let's get right into it. Part 1, Gilead's strong finish to 2025. The big takeaway here is just how resilient they are, showing some really solid growth even with a few challenges in the background. Now, what's really fascinating here is the story hiding just beneath that top number. Total product sales came in at $28.9 billion, which is, a pretty modest 1% increase. But here's the key. If you strip out their declining COVID drug sales, their core business actually grew by a really healthy 4%. And the real star of the show, the HIV franchise, which jumped 6% to a massive $20.8 billion. That, right there, is the engine that's driving this whole company. And speaking of that engine, that brings us right to our second section, the HIV powerhouse. Look, to be clear, this isn't just one part of their business. It is the core engine room, pumping out the growth for the entire company. At the very heart of that engine is Biktarvy. It's still the #1 prescribed HIV treatment in the world, and its sales grew another 7% last year to hit an incredible $14.3 billion. This is the absolute bedrock of their financial stability, a true blockbuster that just keeps on delivering. But, while Biktarvy is the reliable veteran, the story that investors are really excited about is the new player on the scene, Sunlenca. This is their twice-a-year injectable for HIV prevention, and believe me, this is where the future growth story is. So in its first full year out, 2025, Sunlenca brought in a pretty solid $150 million. That's a very respectable start for any new drug launch. But wait for it, because this is where things get really interesting. For 2026, the company isn't just guiding for a small bump. Nope, they're targeting around $800 million. That's more than a 5-fold increase in just 1 year. We are talking about a rocket ship to blockbuster status. So, how in the world are they planning to pull off that kind of explosive growth? Well, this chart tells you everything you need to know. It's all about access. They've already locked in 90% payer coverage, which means almost all insurance plans will cover it. And for 90% of those patients, the copay is $0. By totally removing those financial roadblocks, they've paved a superhighway for massive adoption. Okay, so that's the good news. But of course, it's not all smooth sailing. And that brings us to section 3, the headwinds and hurdles. Because let's be real, every successful company has challenges it's got to overcome. And just so we're all on the same page, when we talk about headwinds in business, it's pretty simple. Just think of it like trying to run against a really strong wind. It's something that makes it harder to move forward and grow. Now, the crucial point on this slide is how these policy changes are hitting them. On its own, the underlying strength of Gilead's HIV business should deliver about 8% growth next year. But after you factor in new drug pricing rules and other policy shifts, that number gets shaved down to 6%. That 2% difference, that's a direct hit to their bottom line from these new regulations. And the headwinds aren't just about drug pricing. As you'd probably guess, revenue from their COVID drug, Veklury, kept falling. It dropped by $900 million last year. And on top of that, their specialized kite cell therapy division is running into some really tough competition, which is putting a squeeze on its sales. In fact, that pressure on kite is so significant that the company is actually guiding for a 10% decline in revenue for that division in 2026. This really highlights their main challenge. While the HIV business is absolutely booming, they have to manage these declines in other parts of the company at the same time. So you might be asking, with those challenges, how does Gilead keep the momentum going? Well, that brings us to section 4, their catalyst-rich future. This is all about what's coming down the pipeline to power that next wave of growth. Now, this is a busy slide, and for a very good reason. Gilead is aiming for 4 potential major commercial launches in 2026 alone. We're talking about expanding their cancer drug Trodelvy,
launching a new HIV treatment called Biktarvy, introducing a new cell therapy, anito-cell, and getting budoprutide for hepatitis D to market. It's a really broad and ambitious plan. And the pipeline isn't just about what's launching this year. It's also about laying the groundwork for years to come. The company expects to get results from 5 critical late-stage phase 3 trials in 2026. If those results are positive, they could unlock entirely new multi-billion-dollar markets. Now, this right here is what gives them the confidence to do all that. This quote from their CEO, Daniel O'Day, is a huge deal. No major product loss of exclusivity until 2036. In plain English, that means their biggest money-making drugs are safe from cheap generic competition for over a decade. This gives them an incredibly long and stable runway to invest and grow the business. Okay, so we've looked at the good, we've looked at the bad, and we've looked at what's coming next. So for our final section, let's put all the pieces together. What is the big takeaway here? It really boils down to this. First, Gilead's core HIV business is a powerful, stable engine that just keeps running. Second, their new drug, Synlenka, looks like it's on the verge of absolutely explosive blockbuster growth. Third, yeah, they face some real headwinds, but they seem pretty manageable, mostly because the huge growth in HIV is more than making up for the declines elsewhere. And finally, and this is the most important part, all that stability is funding a really rich and diverse pipeline that's all set to deliver the growth of the future. So we'll leave you with this question to think about. With its core HIV business locked down and secure for the next decade, the real multi-billion-dollar question is this. Can Gilead's impressive pipeline actually deliver the company's next big blockbuster drug? That's the story to watch.